Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno here with my co-host, Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Martha McCallum, Lisa Booth, and former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Now, President Biden is set to meet with the president of Mexico later today after making his first trip to the southern border as president. A trip his critics say was nothing but a photo op, or as I call it, a layover. The president's meeting in Mexico City comes as new video into Fox News shows more than 100 migrants being processed in Eagle Pass, Texas. But when the president stopped for just 4 hours in El Paso yesterday to see the border crisis firsthand, he didn't see the usual scenes of migrant encampments that we've been showing you for years. That's because they were cleared ahead of his visit. Look at the photo right now. What you are about to see is El Paso on Wednesday versus El Paso on Thursday. We can pull that up maybe a little bit later. Upon his arrival, Texas Governor Greg Abbott handed the president a strongly worded letter. It reads in part, quote, "Your visit to our southern border with Mexico today is $20 billion too little and 2 years too late. Moreover, your visit avoids the sites where mass illegal immigration occurs and sidesteps the thousands of angry Texas property owners, American citizens, my paraphrase, whose lives have been destroyed by your border policies. This chaos is the direct result of your failure to enforce the immigration laws that Congress enacted." Governor Abbott had more to say when he joined Harris last hour. Watch.
These points that I laid out about ending catch and release, about detaining people who are coming across the border illegally, about turning back across the border, people who are coming across the border illegally. All of those are things that the president and the United States already have the legal authority to do, and they are not doing. And until they step up and start doing this, all these other things they're doing is nothing more than a dog and pony show and is not going to stop anybody from coming across the border illegally.
Oh, Congressman, truer words never spoken, frankly. I hope President Biden actually did read that letter. It remains to be seen whether he will, in fact, enforce those policies the governor just articulated that they've been failing to do for 2 years.
Well, let's start off really easy right here. No, he's not. So let's get this all out in the way. That trip to El Paso reminded me of, you ever got a call about 15 minutes, a friend from out of town is coming into your house, they say, "Hey, I'm stopping by." All of a sudden you take everything and cram it into the closet. Well, this is really what the Biden administration's immigration policy is like. They take everything, they cram it into the back room of the closet so nobody sees it, and then when everything goes back to normal, then they just ignore that it's there. They open it up and let it fall out. Look, you've had 2 years. They have an open border policy. They show no interest in making this happen. Mayorkas is a complete, absolute, abject failure and needs to quit just out of anything else. But this is the problem that, he doesn't see the real thing. And Biden, I think, knows it because we're hearing the reports that he's yelling about it in the White House. But the question is, it's not just knowing something, it's actually doing something about it. Democrats don't want to do anything
So
about it.
that's how we know he cares, because he's yelling at people.
He's yelling at people,
I
yes.
mean, I guess between that and whispering, Harris, you had such a great interview last hour with the governor. I loved watching it. And I think what was so offensive and troubling and disheartening as a fellow American citizen of all of those down there, especially in El Paso, is that for the president to receive this sanitized view, as the governor told you, there are more illegal immigrants that have come over the border just since December than the city's population itself. These numbers are staggering, and yet the president, what are we, Rio de Janeiro, cleaning up for the Olympics? He all of a sudden has to have it be peachy keen. He can't handle the truth.
Well, if he could handle the truth, he would have gone down there unannounced.
There you go.
We've had presidents pop all over the world unannounced. And it wouldn't have taken him 2 years to get there. So 2 things really popped out at me that I learned from that interview that I didn't know. First of all, I didn't realize that the containers and things that the governor had put into place had started to have an impact about a week or a week and a half ago. And when did we find out that the president was going down? A few days ago, when they saw that the tide had been stemmed just a little bit. But even with that, the governor today, well, that wouldn't have accounted for not seeing anybody. I mean, you're not just talking about sanitizing the streets where people were lined up trying to stay warm in blankets and get into shelters that had filled up in the city of El Paso. God bless those citizens, by the way, who've done everything they can do and share their space, food, everything else. That's one thing. But the sanitation for the president's political protection was the fact that he goes to a migrant facility where they're intaking like 1,000 people a day. He tried to tell the president. The president's like, no, I just want an average number. He pushes back on this guy to give him a smaller number that he can live with. and he doesn't see one migrant at that facility? You've got 1,000 people. Adjusted number 300 to 400. And not one person is at the facility when the president shows up. You don't have to show their faces on camera. But my goodness, that is a cleanup of epic proportions. That's a lie.
And who's surprised, Harris? This weekend on Fox & Friends, we had the former border chief Rodney Scott on. He said when President Trump came to visit the border, there in San Diego, that he had 2 directives. He said, give me a tour and tell me what I should know. Tell me what's going on here. What were the directives from the President Biden in his visit? Talking points. This was the border chief telling us this in the past. So what else would we expect from this administration other than a manufactured, pre-programmed, sanitized visit? Because everything to them, Martha, is about manufacturing a distorted reality. They can't handle the reality that Friday night, 33 migrants were shipped here to New York City, that all of those being processed required the volunteerism of what are those, the air marshals. I mean, it's an absolute joke on the part of this administration. This is the final cherry on top.
Well, it's pretty clear that they don't want to fix this problem, right? I mean, they ended the building of the wall. They pushed away Remain in Mexico and Title 42. So when you look at the actual policies that they have implemented or not implemented, they're all designed at allowing this to continue. They also just ended a period where they had the House, the Senate, and the White House. So if they wanted to do something about this, they just missed that opportunity. So isn't it interesting that that's when the president goes down? Because now he knows he's likely to have some resistance to a bipartisan agreement on immigration, and that's something Republicans will have to answer to as well, Doug Collins. But now he's going to have a little bit of pushback, even if he wants to say, I'm the person who wants to fix it. But today is all about this discussion between the heads of the United States, of Mexico, and Canada, right? You have Obrador, you have Justin Trudeau. This is an opportunity where we really need Michael Waltz. Congressman Michael Waltz wrote a very good piece on this today, talking about the fact that what they need to focus on is energy production, getting Chinese influence out of South America, and also cracking down on these cartels, because neither one of these countries is running the border. The cartel runs the border. It's an embarrassment to governments to the north and south of this border that the cartels run it. They made $13 billion in human trafficking this year. A couple years ago, that number was $500 million. So this is a huge business for them. But we have drones, we have human intelligence, we have ways that we can work that border with coordination with the Mexicans. Let's see some aggressive discussion about being proactive and cutting back on these cartels, because they are in charge.
Martha, that right there, that was literally presidential. But instead, what we got from actual
2024
Joe Biden.
There's an announcement
He
here.
asked the question. But listen to what the actual president asked when he got down there. He said, he was caught on air saying, if I could wave the wand, what should I do? Oh, I don't know, Mr. President. Did any of the lawsuits filed by the attorneys general, maybe the governors, maybe the disaster declarations by the mayors, get out of here? So do we have a president, Lisa, or do we have a genie in a bottle?
Well, we have a liar in chief, right? This is an Orwellian presidency. It's a gaslighting presidency. I mean, you look at everything, we're being lied to. I mean, we're facing a massive propaganda war from the media and this administration. And it's on everything, right? You look at this sanitized version of the border where they kick everyone off the streets and clean it up where, for the photo op, right? You look at with the vaccines not providing immunity. They changed the definition of what it means to be vaccinated. Oh, men can have babies, men can get pregnant. It's pregnant people now on everything. Oh, you don't like, we're in a recession, you don't want people to know, just redefine it. Right? So that's what we're facing. This is an Orwellian presidency. We are being lied to on a monumental scale. And sadly, much of the media, not us, are following along with it. And unfortunately, we have a small group of Republicans who fought for change. They'll force a vote on the Texas border plan. So you're going to have some of these Democrats on the record. What do they really think about this? And to Martha's point, that's why Joe Biden is doing this photo op, because he knows he's going to feel the heat. The past 2 years are going to catch up to him, and he's going to be exposed. And so will this administration. So it's time to light the fire under him.
Well, real quickly, he wants to run again. So this is part of the cleanup on aisle 7.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback shortly off of what you said. So the cartels, they had a prison break about a week ago now. And one of the heads, a really, really dangerous individual, gets out, and they are fighting warfare along the border with our country. 17 people, guards, died in that fight to keep those people contained. what happens when they can't contain them. And that's right, Juarez, right across from El Paso, where the president was. It's interesting. None of that got talked about during this visit, and he was right there.
That followed the arrest of El Chapo's son. To Martha's
Yes.
point, it is the cartels that are running everything. If anything, Biden should meet with them instead of
They should be at the
Obrador.
table, perhaps, because until they are in some way, or until they're under pressure with these drones and intelligence, they don't have any incentive to budge.
Well, we also have a DHS secretary who said crossing the border illegally is not grounds for deportation. So we could also start with him, with
read it.
Mayorkas.
Yeah.
There's a lot needed. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.